if you look over my left shoulder, you will see Pixel. That's Pixel. She's almost never in videos of mine. So, there she is. So, news of the day kind of thing. This is kind of what I planned on doing when I got up. And I'm like, oh, there's a trade. And there's an extension signed. Okay. This is how the offseason works. And this is when people understand just how many different jerseys I have. Because, of course, I change for each video. And then when I go out, I change again. So, news of the day. This was actually reported a couple days ago. I could finally throw this in. I'm not going to do a video on this specifically. Rick Nash has been named as the assistant to the general manager. Now, I know what people are thinking, and I've been seeing it all over social media. It's been reported this way everywhere. Not assistant general manager. Assistant to the general manager. Which, for people who know who Dwight Schrute is, it's been fantastic. I've seen it on Instagram. I've seen it on Twitter. And it really deserves to be in a news article. Congratulations, Rick Nash, on ending your career as a hockey player and now beginning as the new Dwight Schrute. I look forward to an Office reboot set in Columbus. Which, hey, you know, if that means Yarmo is going to be Michael Scott, that could be very interesting. So I had to mention it. I had to throw it in there because it just looks so weird to me. I'm like, assistant to the general manager. So I said to my wife, I said, yeah, so Rick Nash is now the assistant to the general manager. And she goes, he's Dwight? So that shows, like, just how commonly held that terminology is. That's Dwight. Dwight's assistant to the general manager. Okay, moving on from Dwight Schrute. No sign and trade for Panarin and Bobrovsky. So at this time of year, we saw it happen with Kevin Hayes. Teams may very well be calling Columbus, but the price in order to get exclusive rights to talk to these guys before July 1st, it's gonna be high. So Columbus, at this point, looks like they're gonna lose Panarin and Bobrovsky for nothing, and we'll see how that affects them next year. But it does look like they're gonna lose them for nothing. Joe Thornton reported is likely to return. See? Every time I say that he's probably done, he is not. That Shannon guy said, I'm probably done. I'm coming back. And his knees are probably begging, please don't. He's like, to hell with you knees, I don't care. You guys are done anyways. So while Thornton's likely to return, and apparently they're working on a contract with him potentially for one more year, Karlsson is talking extension with San Jose that apparently is in and about the same money that Doughty got. Doughty got an 8-year, $88 million extension last summer. Remember, right before he's going to Toronto, and then he's not going to Toronto. Karlsson, it's been similar talk. Could he end up going to Toronto? No. If San Jose signs him for 8 years for $88 million or anywhere near that, oh boy. It's gutsy. It's Doug Wilson really putting it out there, but it's a lot of money. And this is a team that has a pretty good blue line, and it'll be interesting to see what the Sharks do outside of that. What else they do, because that would really to me it throws their pay structure off, but we'll see what happens. Nicholas Kronwall, remember all year, Wings fans were saying, Shannon, he's retiring. You don't need to talk about Kronwall for next year. He's retiring. He's a UFA, but he's retiring. Now he might not. Now, I can't say for sure that it's because Yzerman's in town, but I don't think that hurts that Yzerman's the boss now. He's likely looking at it and going, I could go for another year. So that's what he's looking at, is potentially playing for another year. And at 38, he's not done. He could play for another year. And Yzerman has said he's fine with him sticking around. They'll talk and they'll see. The only UFA to be that apparently Yzerman hasn't had talks with yet is Vanek. Vanek probably not coming back to the Wings, I would think. And I've started noticing this already on TSN and Sportsnet, and you guys are going to see it all over sports media. The Blues are going to be cited now as an example by a lot of failing teams. So what we're going to start seeing is teams that are losing in October, November, December, teams that are near at the bottom of the league, and people saying, remember the Blues now. Remember what the Blues did. What the Blues did was historic. You can't replicate it. And you can't go, well, they were 31st in the NHL, so clearly it can be done again. It can't. This was lightning in a bottle. This was, sorry, Tampa fans, I didn't mean to use that term. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you got swept in the first round. This is not going to happen again. I'm going to go right out on a limb. Whichever team is January 2nd's worst team in the NHL is not winning the Stanley Cup. Really shouldn't be considered that out on a limb, but I'm doing it right now. January 2nd, you guys can write this down. January 2nd, whoever's 31st in the NHL, they're not winning the Stanley Cup. I say so. Because it's not going to happen again. There's no way. But it's going to be used as an example. It's being used on TSN as like an example for Ken Holland of how the Oilers aren't that far away from a playoff spot. Anyways, the Blues, here's the thing. So for people who say, well, that makes sense. The Blues brought in a lot of guys in between one season and the next. It took about 30 games for them to learn how to play together, and then they started playing really well together. That's how it worked with St. Louis. This isn't just a matter of, it was this random team that was garbage in January and then magically they turned around. No, man for man, they were pretty good. And most of us, the channel, myself included too, we were all picking them to finish third in the division, which is where they finished. They had a furious finish to get there, but they got there. So it's not like, Ottawa magically winning a Stanley Cup or Edmonton magically winning a Stanley Cup when they looked terrible for half the season. So no, this was a completely different circumstance. And finally, last but not least, apparently Garrett Sparks is on the market. I have to admit I find this mildly humorous. Last October, when they waived McElhinney, and I said, you're waiving McElhinney and keeping Sparks? This is insanity. There were a lot of people that said, hey, Sparks is a lot younger and he's a better goaltender and he's got a lot of potential, and look what he did with the Marlies. Now we're a year later, and apparently the Leafs are looking to sell him. And they're not going to get a significant return. It's not going to be like a first and a prospect or anything for Sparks. So I find that weird that apparently Sparks is being shopped. And it's not that they can't afford to keep him. It's not to save money. My guess is that when Babcock sat down with Kyle Dubas, after the season was done, this was probably brought up. I want to have a veteran backup. Sparks is not my guy. That's just the way that I read it, just from the fact that Sparks was played very, very little. So then the question becomes one of, well, would they go with Hutchinson as the backup? No. If they're moving on from Sparks, that means that the Toronto Maple Leafs are going to be in the market to pick somebody up. Maybe even Curtis McElhinney, who's a free agent this summer. The Leafs definitely, if they could improve their backup. Look, Toronto's not that far off. And while we all laugh and joke in 1967, they're not that far off from being not just a contender, but potentially winning it all. I think a backup and a top four defenseman, you're in good shape. But we'll see, because again, this summer's going to tell us a lot about where the Toronto Maple Leafs are at. If Sparks goes, where does he go? Because I'm not sure who's going to be. I mean, maybe Vegas? Maybe Vegas for Subban. Maybe you swap backups to see. Well, we don't have a whole lot of faith in Subban. We don't have a whole lot of faith in Sparks. Let's swap them and see if that helps fix things. That kind of thing. Like, let me know what you guys think might happen with Sparks, or if it's just nothing's going to happen. That's just that Toronto media getting everything started up again. And there's definitely usually something to be said for that as well. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will talk to you again soon.